Bring you this big international story now. Former Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been found guilty of accepting gold and cash payments totaling $600,000 US. Suu Kyi has been sentenced to 5 years in jail for her crimes. She's denied any wrongdoing, calling the charges against her absurd. Now, the activist, and let's bring in activist and scholar Maung Zarni, who joins us now via our video link for more on the story. Lovely to have you on the program, sir. Thanks very much indeed for your time. You know, I think context is incredibly important in making sense of these latest developments. Aung San Suu Kyi is a civilian leader in Myanmar who was elected, toppled during a military coup, and has now had all kinds of charges against her. Human Rights Watch has actually pushed back against the legal proceedings so far. They've described them as a circus, joining, a chorus of other NGOs and activists who've really called what's taking place a sham. Tell us why.
Well, because all the charges have been trumped up, then, Aung San Suu Kyi is guilty of, proactively defending and denying the Burmese military's genocide of Rohingya people that took place, or reached its final phase in 2017. That's about 5 years ago. But she is not guilty of corruption, and that's just not her character. She's not the politician that's driven by the desire for the riches, and she wants to leave her legacy as the daughter of the independence hero and the co-founder of modern Burma, Aung San, as somebody who continued on with her father's vision of the federal democratic Burma. And so that, all these foreign NGOs from human rights and other sectors are correct when they call it a sham. And, you mentioned context. She has been the most popular, and I would even say populist, Burmese nationalist civilian politician that the military has been unable to beat in any clean electoral process, even using their proxy political parties. And so the military held, full elections since 1989 or 1990. And every single election she participated in, or she contested in, she won any pro-military candidates, and her party beat any pro-military or military-backed parties, hands down. And so 2020, she was re-elected as MP, and she is actually constitutionally barred by the military from assuming the highest office in the land, the presidency. So she assumed the leadership under the title of state counselor, and so the military felt extremely threatened by the fact that her reforms were biting into their domains, the military's domains of economic and political interest. And so they staged a coup in February last year, and they came up with all kinds of trumped up charges, 18 of them. And this is just one of 18. And
right.
This is utter nonsense.
And that's what I wanted to actually ventilate with you. I mean, there's a whole series of, call it trials, if you want to, against her. I mean, in December, she was found guilty in part of apparently violating COVID-19 rules. She's also facing 10 other corruption charges. When that military coup took place in February 2021, she was under house arrest. But then I understand that she's actually now been placed in an undisclosed location. Following this latest conviction, does that mean she'll be moved to some kind of prison? Do we know where she is?
Well, nobody knows. I mean, obviously she's in a secret location, and I think she is being held as a hostage. I wouldn't call it a judicial proceedings, in the normal functional sense of the term, and then but she's held a hostage, and then at some point they may have a plan to use her as a trump card to try to reach some kind of negotiated settlement with the the society that is up in arms, and she's in their view, perhaps at this point wrongly, that she's the only one that can cool the fire in the country. That literally thousands of young people as well as middle-aged people from all walks of life, including like journalists and doctors and teachers and engineers and even beauty pageants, took up arms and formed about 300 different resistance fighting groups, under the rubric of national unity government or leadership of that government, and it's some outside, and then they join hands with about 4 or 5 major armed ethnic revolutionary groups that have been fighting the military on and off for the last 70 years. And so we're in a serious civil war situation, except that this time the society is trying to topple the once national armed forces that they now consider and essentially occupying force that have overstayed their welcome by about 50 years.
Right. The international community has spoken out greatly against what's taking place. In some instances, this being described as being farcical. What happens next for Myanmar? I mean, this is a country that has had many people concerned for quite some time. The arrest of Aung San Suu Kyi seen as a direct threat to democracy in that country. You've already also outlined how it's led to scores of people taken to the streets in form of protest. It seems like the instability that she'd been able to stave off in the 5 years of her, activism may very well return because of this arrest.
Well, I think that the first thing I would want to say, I mean, this is obviously, the crystal ball gazing,
right.
But based on, what I have learned over the last 30 years, I think the political future for Aung San Suu Kyi remains extremely uncertain. Yeah, she's already approaching 80, like she's in the upper reaches of the 70s. And the military enjoys unconditional support. Just recently, the Chinese, the leadership invited the military's representative on foreign affairs and promised, in quotes, unconditional support. Whatever happens in the country, that Beijing is going to back Burma, the Burmese military, and gave the military 120 million US dollar. That's throwing a lifeline to a regime that is suffering from extremely low foreign currency reserve, and the regime is the latest financial policies that the military regime came up with would force all businesses and individuals and NGOs operating in Burma to convert the U.S. dollars into local currencies, because the military wants to snatch or grab the money from foreign. Then they made some exceptions for UN and other entities, right? So economy is in a free fall. The health system has collapsed. Education system has collapsed because thousands of the teachers and academics and scholars have joined civil disobedience movement. In other words, refusing to work in military-controlled institutions. And finally, the new generation of Burmese are not simply protesting on the streets. They still do, some of them, but majority of them have joined armed fighting, armed resistance against the military. So then we also have 20 different armed ethnic organizations. And so we are a huge mess. And, I don't know that there will be a clear winner, either the military or the society's armed resistance. And so this stalemate can drag on. And I think that is going to damage, or that is already damaging, any prospects for economic development or environmental, policies or the
Sure.
countries, the human resource development. And so we are looking at the abyss.
Absolutely. Really concerning what's taking place in Myanmar. An important story. We'll keep watching. Thanks for helping us connect the dots on this Thursday morning. That there is Maung Zarni, who is an activist and scholar. Live to us there from London.